You've tamed the voices in your head. You've put your
Hi,
courage
everyone,
to the
and welcome
test.
to a new
Laid all
episode
your
of Intuitive
doubts
Queens
to
podcast. I'm your host,
rest.
Mara Marchesi, aka the
Your mind
Intuition
is
Queen. I
clearer
am
than
here to
before.
empower
Your
women,
heart is
entrepreneurs, and
full
creative
and
souls
wanting more.
to
Your
trust their
future's
intuition
at
and tune into
the
their freedom and abundance
door.
frequency. I'm here to
You
help you
know you
release
got it.
fears, limiting
No
beliefs, blockages that might stand
hesitation.
in the
You know
way
you
of being
got
your
it
powerful
all.
self and truly help you create the life that you desire, whatever that is. I believe in following our personal guidance, which is our intuition, and really knowing to understand what is our personal strategy, energetic strategy, so that we can create the life based on our own needs and not what other people are saying. So, in this podcast, this is what you're going to find a lot of guests that shared their story, how they started to trust their intuition and eventually created a life that is resonating with their soul and found their purpose. And you will also find a lot of tips, and I will share stories about how I overcame my obstacles, my fears, so that you can be empowered and inspired to do the same. Welcome to Intuitive Queens, and today we have Rose Wippich, which is a yoga, QiGong, Reiki, and energy alchemist. Welcome, Rose.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy for you to be here. So, Rose and I connected because I've been a guest on her podcast, Chat Off the Mat, and I suggest you go check it out because she has some amazing guests on there, and she talks about a lot of those energy things that we all like. And then Rose was also so nice to have a session with me, and we talked about it in your podcast.
Yes.
And because she does a lot of those things that I love so much, but also you have such an incredible story. And I wanted you on the podcast because it talks a lot about healing in what healing means for me on a bigger scale, not just emotional healing, but it just like a really, really important story. And I think your story is going to be so empowering and inspiring for a lot of people.
No, thank you. Yes. Well, I have a few stories, but I could start at the beginning if you'd like.
Before we get there,
Yeah.
oh no, actually, no, actually, go
Go.
with. I
Go.
think
All right.
yes, I think it's better like that.
So, I like to start my story at a time in my life that I was probably at my lowest point, and it was, I guess, in my 30s after several relationship breakups. And relationships, are interesting because we hold a lot of relationships, those relationships with family, with mom, with dad, with siblings. And then as we grow older, we try to create proper relationships with other people. But because we don't understand ourselves, or maybe we've had difficult relationships as when we were children with our parents, we kind of transfer some of that energy in our adult relationships. So
Yeah,
things were crumbling down all the time, repeated patterns for me of things that I'm like, they were never my fault. Of course, it was always the other person. But it got to a point where things really crumbled, where I felt totally defeated, totally deflated. I, had thoughts that were not good. And, I needed to rebuild myself from the ashes that were there. And it was one particular breakup where I was at my lowest point. I went back to live with my dad. My mother had been gone for a while. She passed away when I was 49. And I mean, when she was 49, I was 27 at the time. But this story takes place, I was about mid 30s, going back to live with my dad, which was great because he didn't care. He actually loved it. And at that time, found yoga, and yoga at that time, it was nowhere to be found. So I had to drive far, but I knew that I needed to do that. See, I've been very intuitive since I was a young child, since I was my first, like 10 years old, I can remember. And I always had that, I'm also a projector, human design, splenic. So I always know that there's something pulling me in a certain direction. So I knew yoga was going to help me. How? I don't know. I didn't know. So I went, and I immediately started to feel the energy and the difference in myself as a person. I felt more grounded. I started to feel the healing process. I loved my teacher. And she introduced me to a lot of things, and one was Reiki at the time. And then, we're thinking Reiki years ago was very, very woo woo, where now it's
Mm.
very mainstream. People understand it a little more and accept it. And one of the things I was healing from back then too is physical pain. I had a lot of joint pain, and no doctor understood where it was coming from. They took all the tests. There was nothing wrong with me, but I hardly could walk on days. So went to yoga, did what did the movements, and everything started to feel better, moving the energy in my body. So I was able to release a lot of that pain. Fast forward to Reiki, I met a Reiki master at the time, and I decided I wanted to learn what this was. So had a session with Alex. He's the Reiki person. So he comes to my dad's house, and he's like, this African American, beautiful man with dreadlocks, and brings his table and sets it up. And here I am laying on the table. He's like, okay, well, you're gonna feel energy, you're gonna feel heat, maybe coolness, maybe see color. I'm like, I'm all in, just relax. I'm like, okay. So I'm laying on the table, he puts his hands on me, I'm feeling more and more relaxed, more and more relaxed. I'm in a semi-conscious state, so it's very dreamlike. And then all of a sudden, I see an image of my mother coming down from heaven, and she had her hands in like prayer position. She opens up her hands and she shows me two baby bottles. And from that point on, I knew I was going to have twins. And
Mm.
this was I get goosebumps every time I say this story. I have identical twin boys.
No way.
Yeah.
But wait, so when you were doing the Reiki, you didn't have a partner at that
Did
point, or
not have
you
a
did,
partner. Nope. This was
right?
about, I would say, 8, 9 years before my children were born.
Right.
I knew it. It was such a healing moment for me to know that there was hope. After
Mm.
all the relationship breakups, after all that I went through, here is my mother coming to me. And my mother, I loved my mother, but we had a very distant relationship because I think her upbringing, she wasn't very loving or close or understood how to communicate with me. But here she is coming from the other side and shows me two baby bottles as a message to say that you're going to be okay. You're going to be a mom. And I know it's a mom is always what I wanted to be. And she
Right.
showed me that I would have twins. And I eventually, I continued to do the work on myself to heal. That was a very pivotal moment in my life after that Reiki session, knowing that I had hope, that there was this energy out there that one day I could be a mom. And I continued to do the work internally. I journaled. I bought self-help books that were very few back then. But I did the work, and I eventually found my partner, Brian, who's my husband now. And I remember telling him, I just want to tell you that I'm going to have twins one day. So he's like, yeah, okay. I roll, right? Okay. Well, fast forward, got married. I was 40, age 40 when I got pregnant. So I was not a young person, a young woman. It was high risk. And I remember going to the doctor, they did a sonogram, and he's like, wow. And they thought it was one birth, one singular pregnancy. And he goes, wow. I said, what? And I knew it. And he said, you have an identical twin. I said, I knew it. So yes, I find that to be my greatest story, and a story that heals me on so many levels, even after I say it so many times, and I've shared that story with so many people.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's so beautiful because
thank you.
especially when someone that you loved, even though whatever was your relationship with your mom,
gives you that kind of message, and it's something that you've been wanting for so long. I think it just gives you that peace of mind, and that you feel like, okay, like I just need to continue to work on myself, and eventually what I really want will come through, and I don't need to worry about. And I think we are so projected on our future and how our future is supposed to be looking like, that
Yeah.
oftentimes we worry so much for no reason.
Yeah. And I've always felt that I've manifested everything that I've had in my life, although it doesn't come in the exact way or when we think it's going to
Mm-mm.
show up. I always wanted to be a mom. I didn't always think I was going to be a mom of twins. Um, I became a mom at the age of 41, and it was a high risk pregnancy. They were born 2 months early. They were at
Mm.
28 and a half weeks. And so there were a lot of challenges with that pregnancy, with their birth, with their upbringing and their early ages. But I could, and Reiki was just the beginning. So after that Reiki session, and when my children were younger, I became a Reiki practitioner because my children were diagnosed with something that could have been pretty bad during their upbringing, during their you know, um, as they grew up. And I could share that story too if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when they were about 5 years old, they get their yearly exams, and they were great. They had some typical things about, they didn't talk right away. They had some occupational therapy things that they had to do, gripping and all that. We did all that work with them. Being born early, a lot of things don't develop
Mm.
naturally. But they were diagnosed with something called neurofibromatosis 1, which is called NF1. And it was indicated by these cafe au lait spots. And my mother used to call them coffee spots. They're like these big brown spots on their bodies, birthmarks.
Right.
And the doctor said that's NF1. And what can happen is that they can get growths in their body. Like, if you think about the Elephant Man movie where he had these big growths on his face and his body, those can all grow. And so here I am with this news that this is happening to my children. They get MRIs of their brain because their head was a little bigger than normal, quote unquote. And my one son, they found a tumor on his optic nerve in his brain.
Wow.
Yeah. So as a mom, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? I feel so helpless. And they said, well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's cancerous because this typical NF1 thing, it may not be cancerous. However, we're going to watch it. I'm like, okay. So every year they would get an MRI. And they said during puberty is when you really have to worry about. So I knew a person who was a friend of mine, was a Reiki master. And I went to her and I said, listen, I've always wanted to practice Reiki. This is the time I really, really need it for my children. And so it was like a kitchen attunement. She sat me down in her kitchen, she took out her books, did a Reiki attunement on me to get the energy so that I could help my children.
Right.
And that was my intention. I mean, that's my biggest why for wanting to have Reiki in my life. And so I would do Reiki on my kids all the time. And every year they'd get an MRI or every so often, and everything was fine. There were no developments. They would get lumps on their bodies, but nothing significant. And, all through puberty, they were fine. So now that they're 20 years old, they've had minimal issues with this NF1. And, you know, prayers, intention, Reiki energy, whatever you want to call it, mother's energy, mother's love. But I really attribute a lot of the intention and my wanting to help them and the Reiki energy that they're okay, that they didn't have to, you know, have any, or they didn't have any bad issues with this. So, you know, I really am very grateful for learning and having that tool in my life. And it's really helped me out a lot. So I know I talk about Reiki a lot, but when I think back of my life and my stories, those really big moments in my life that changed and shifted for me were the result of having this energy work. So
Thank you for sharing this. It's a really, really powerful story, and I cannot imagine how difficult it was for you. But I also think that all of the challenges that we get to receive is because we need to be pushed in some sort of direction. So the fact that Reiki became the thing that helped you to help your family, and at the same time helped you heal you, and at the same time became something bigger, so now you help your client, it just makes so much sense for me, because there is so much love as a starting point. And I think that it's the best way to become the best practitioner in whichever discipline that we get to do this, because you're doing it for love, you're doing it with love, and you're not doing it because it's something that, as you said, now especially it has become so mainstream that I want to do this because I heard about it, or
right.
I heard that this makes money, so I want to
Right.
be a coach because now all the coaches are making money, apparently.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, I agree with
you
you.
know, I think that this is the reason why we're going in that direction. There is a meaning and a purpose that is bigger than the actual practice, and the second desire, which obviously becomes, okay, now I want to serve someone else.
Yeah.
But the purpose is, my children are the most important thing of my life, and I need to take care of them.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you take care of yourself somehow.
Absolutely. I mean, it was all about my family and myself, because I wound up having breast cancer too several years after that. And Reiki helped me. I mean, you know, I I can't even tell you all the stories, but eventually I realized how powerful this energy is, how powerful being positive amidst the, chaos of life, that I wanted to share with other people. I wanted to shout it at the rooftops and say, look what this energy can do. Look what a positive mindset can do. It can help yourself. It can heal you. It can show you the path. And I've since gone on to help a lot of people become Reiki practitioners as well. And
Right.
and that's I love that. I love to give that gift of healing in that way so people can help themselves, because I'm all about, listen, you have the ability to help yourself, because I know I did. There was nobody sprinkling magic dust or fairy dust over my head and say, you're healed now. It wasn't like that. It was work. And I know you know that, Mara, because you've done a lot of the work, right?
I've done a lot of work, and the thing for me, like for you, I did it to heal myself. Like, for example, talking about Reiki, I had a friend that was a Reiki is still a Reiki master, and she was the one that kind of introduced me to a lot of those spiritual practices. She was the first one to give me a crystal and be like, use
Right.
this crystal, because I remember I was working for this place, and it started off as a kind of like a family environment, and I loved it. And then as it always happened, being a 5-1 generator, the daughter of the owner kind of started to see me as competition, because she was always home because she was either pregnant or taking care of the new baby or having a new baby. And so she was never in the office, and people look at me as the person in charge. And so every time she was back for a little bit before having another baby, people wouldn't talk to her. And so with the weird dynamic started to happen. And I could feel it. And my friend was like, okay, I'm going to give you this crystal. Just put it in a glass of water and keep it in front of your computer when you are in the office. This will help you. I was like, okay, anything, anything, and then eventually, Reiki for me was, I went to take the first level of Reiki 6 months after my dad passed away. because this friend of mine had known me. We had worked together when we were in Italy. We had been friends for a long time, and I was very proud of her journey. And so whenever she was talking to me about certain modalities, or we were chatting about something, she would always say something that would stick to me, and I'd be like, oh. So eventually I will go and have a session. That's how I started to do family constellation. She was the first person I did family constellation with, and that was a revelation. And then I did Reiki to heal myself, because after 6 months my dad passed away. I still was not in a good place, and my mom was in Italy, I was in London. But that never really became a thing for me, because I was like, okay, yeah, that I see how that helps, and I see how. And then I took the second level of Reiki, and I was like, okay, now I feel like this makes a lot of sense for me now that I am a coach. I'm doing color therapy, I'm doing human design readings, and it kind of makes sense that I can also offer this, although I don't offer that much. But it did help. And in learning all of this, I learned to heal my body in a way that I obviously talked about but never expected to actually happen. And when I was in Italy, obviously the relationship with my mom was very much a conflict every single day. But I knew I was there for a reason. But at some point I developed this issue, and I just couldn't get rid of it. And I went to, all of the books, Louise Hay, all of that. I'm like, what is this about? And she was like, this is related to conflict. And I can't remember what else. I was like, I knew it was emotional. I just didn't know exactly where it was coming from. I was like, I could try to figure that out, but I was like, I need something that actually tells me what it is. And I started to do work on that. And then I did work on that, and then I did work on that. And then one day I'm like, okay, it's been a few months. I am no longer in Italy. You now have to go. I really was so upset, because like, I've been working on you for a long time now. But I wasn't really doing that much work. Like, whenever I remembered, I would do something. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna work on you for a week. You have to go. And I started doing Reiki constantly on myself, setting intention every single day, and releasing everything that I needed to release. And within a week, it was gone. It's like, oh, okay. Now, then it means I work.
Yes. That's when the work begins.
I did it on myself. It actually worked. And
Yeah.
that was surprising to me, but also kind of like a confirmation that everything that I know, and everything that I feel, and how powerful this is. Because I think that until you do something that it's amazing, you still have that kind of like, oh yeah, it works, like it relaxes you, it makes you feel better.
Right.
To me, that was like, oh, now we get it. Okay, okay, now it's a different level.
Yeah. It's hard to explain to people, because, people that are new to it, they're like, well, what is it? Well, it's this and that. It makes you relax. But, once you relax on such a deep level and you really trust in the energy, it can really make a lot of changes. And then it actually shows you. I've always felt, and the more I've been practicing now, I look back and I realize that Reiki has showed me all the doors that I needed to walk through, or all the things that I needed to learn, and all the people that I've needed to meet, like yourself.
Yeah.
And I learned from everyone, and all of these tools. So Reiki is just one tool of the many tools that I've been introduced to. And I think it's really important that having a self-awareness, and being open to learning new things, whether it's human design or qigong or yoga or Reiki or anything, that all these tools, some of them may not do anything, but some of them may change you.
Mm-mm.
And, that's where the magic happens. Like, you learn, or you find something, you're like, oh my gosh. And it gives you like this new life, or this new passion. And, that's when the really big changes happen.
Yeah.
So I
completely.
love your story. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
You know, I love
you're
listening.
welcome.
I love listening to healing stories. I was just at a Reiki retreat up in Omega in New York, and one of the sessions was about stories and the Reiki healing stories, and we all broke up into separate groups and we shared stories. And I'm like, wow, like, there's so many stories out there, and and stories heal so much. I mean,
Oh my God,
right?
yeah.
I mean, just journaling or writing or getting things out on paper. And I've met people who have healed by their storytelling, even if no one hears them or listens to them. It's so powerful, and there's so much healing,
Yeah,
that we need.
absolutely. And you know, I just think that it helps you to understand how powerful we are. And I don't think you need to necessarily become a healer. I think we all have healing capacity anyway. Uh, your words can be healing to a friend. Your behavior can be healing to someone. You know, like for example, I've always been that kind of person that cheers other people up, that is always like very energetic, and people are drawn to me. So it almost feels like I never have problems,
Hmm.
or you know, my problems are there for a day, and the day after I'm back to how I was yesterday. um this is
Uh,
something I realized when my dad passed away. I had not realized this about me up until that moment. But because I was so down and so low for so long, I realized how the dynamic shifted also with the people around me. And some of the things I have, like one of the things that I learned when my dad passed away is like who really loves you
mm,
and who really can be there for you when you cannot be there for anybody else, barely for yourself. And that's when a lot of the friendships that I had, I let go of, because I was like, you weren't able to be there for me even for 5 minutes. So that's
yes.
fine. Let go.
Yeah.
Um, and the people that stuck with me didn't do anything special, but they were just right there for me, allowing me to cry if I needed to cry, taking me out, knowing that I would stay home and things like that. And they weren't changing behavior from before. There was just a little bit more attention and understanding that I couldn't be the person, the funny person, the person that is always bubbly. I needed
Yeah.
someone to help me out. And those people are not healers. They are just people that understand on a human capacity that I needed help because I barely could be there for myself. And they knew I needed someone to help me move through this, because every pain is temporary,
Right.
even if we don't think that is, but it is.
Yeah.
So everybody has the capacity to be a healer. And then there are some of us that at some point in our life we come across by mistake or by chance or because we actually knew we need to do that. It doesn't really matter, but we all have that capacity to be healers, and then we decide which way to go and what to embrace and what not.
Right.
And so the more you embrace whatever it is that is your thing, the more you learn to understand that there is so much power into the energy, into the words, into whatever that is.
Yeah.
And the more you use that, and the more you practice, and the more you believe in it, the more it becomes powerful, and you realize that it actually works.
Yep. Yeah. I love that you shared that. Your friends held a space for you. And I was thinking the same thing. There, you don't have to be a healer, because I find myself experiencing the same things when there's moments in my life that I'm struggling with. And I struggled with things, you struggle with things. We're healers, we
Yeah.
help others, but we struggle with things because the
Oh my
work is
God. Yeah.
constant, right? But then sometimes I feel like I'm alone on an island because no one understands and no one's there because they're figured, oh, she's got it because she knows all the tools. But I'm a
Yeah.
human person too. I mean, I don't know if it's because the sun's in Cancer and I'm a rising Cancer, but I've been crying the past week. I'm just sitting there. I mean, for no reason. I'm like, okay, this is healing, Rose. Just let it go. Let it go. You had a lot of Reiki stuff happen, healing the past week. Let it just go. And I just let myself cry. It could be because I was thinking about my parents. My dad's gone also. I was very close to him. And he passed away about 8 years ago. But anyway, I just was like, but it was all okay. I needed to just let it out. And, I don't also, want to just pick up the phone and say, hey, so and so, I'm feeling down. You have an ear. I'm not like that. I've always been someone who
Same,
was very independent and right. And we
same.
take care of ourselves. But it's nice when someone comes along and says, I'm here. I'm just here. And I've also lost a lot of friends or people. I want to say lost because I think when we change, our energy changes, people do fall away for whatever
Hmm.
reason.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to accept that, but we have to learn just to let go and everyone's on their own journey. But yeah, so a lot of what you were saying resonates with me too. And I'm sure it resonates with a lot with your listeners and my listeners as well. But you
Yeah,
find people, on this journey, if you're open to receiving, you do come across people like, like you and I, like how we
absolutely.
connected and I'm sure other people that you've connected through your work, you know.
Oh, completely.
Mm.
But I think for me it was a little bit shocking because I mean, like the moment you move to a city like London or maybe New York or maybe those big cities, that people don't necessarily stay there for that long
Yeah,
because especially here, there like I remember when I moved, there were so many people from every country, and that gave me so much joy because I had friends from Brazil and Argentina and whatever country like. But then those people tend to go away, so I got used to not be attached to friends because it was just the nature of the city. But at that point, I had a group of friends that had been there for a long time and were best friends, as we called each other. And it was a little bit shocking for me. But at the same time, I knew that friendships are cyclical because people come into our life for a reason, and they also leave for a reason, and we're always changing and growing, and sometimes the people around us don't grow in the same way
right,
we do, and just the way it is. But the the thing is that as long as you allow yourself to let go of what doesn't serve you and you create some sort of networking of people that can understand you, then it's easier to move through. But I get it. Like I'm like you, like, and I agree with what you said. Like my podcast yesterday, well, podcast in the beginning of July came out with my first guest of this season. Let's put it this way. So my first guest of the season, I asked my friend Novali, who lives in LA, to be my guest because she actually has been my friend for 4 years. And she's been a friend because she came on my podcast in the first season. We never met
right,
in person. But since that moment, we started to have a chat every 2 weeks. And from being a chat because it's a pandemic, I like your energy, you like my energy, or let's connect. It became a friendship that I really, really love because we can talk about everything. And she's also, into spirituality, and we can talk about things that we do understand about it.
right,
And that, and like you said, like even with you, you feel it. There is a different kind of connection. There are some guests on your podcast, there are some people come into your life, you have a certain connection. Then there are some people that come and you have a connection that is so powerful, so enlightening, and just the right one in that moment. And you're
yes,
like, oh, okay, now I want more of this.
right,
And I want less of those ones that feel like something, but they're not.
right. I love that. That's great. Yeah, I yeah, I'm grateful for everyone that I meet on my podcast, and I've learned so much from every single one. It's been great, and just being able to share my stories as a guest as well, like you asking me to come onto your show. I, my intention is always and always has been to inspire someone out there, whatever, wherever you are in your journey, know that there's always hope and healing, and you just need to be open to it. And I just, like you, want to inspire someone to live their best life
Yeah.
or a good life, and I'm finding now, as I'm reaching an older age, I feel I've always felt that my life got better and richer as I got older. Like I married my husband at 40, had my kids at 41. So I feel like still a young mom at my kids are 20. I became a yoga teacher at 55 years of
I
age.
love that. I love that.
Okay. So that wasn't easy, but let me tell you, it was one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. And I was there with kids, young girls that were in their 20s. And it was just, and I've embraced yoga and I love it. And then, become a Qigong instructor. So, life doesn't end after menopause or after your
Mm-mm.
kids leave or when they get older. As a matter of fact, I find that it's more enriching and I'm embodying such a more, I don't know, more grace. I feel more like sovereign. I feel, um, I have my aches and pains. God knows, I wake up, my back hurts, but then I'm like, okay, I need to figure out why energetically. So I've got those tools, but I'm putting together now, like, I'm writing a book now, and for years I was writing a book and would write, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I know what I want to write about. I know my theme now. And my theme is to help women who are older embrace and embody this beautiful presence of not
Mm.
of the crone. You've heard of the crone energy,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
crone is like this to me, like a hag or an old woman who's like bent over and she's wrinkled with long gray hair. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's not
Same. I
beautiful
have the
because,
same vision.
right? A is like it looks almost like a witch, like this old person. And I'm not saying that's not beautiful. It's a beautiful image, but I don't resonate with that. I resonate with like, I want to look good and I want to feel good. If I don't look good, if I just feel good inside my body, inside my skin, when I look out into the world, I want to see myself being not somebody who is dismissed or looked down
Mm.
upon or forgotten. That's not that's not who I want to be like. And I want to share that energy and teach other women that, yeah, life is not over after menopause, that you're still fertile in so many ways. You can create, you can um, feel sexy, you can feel beautiful, you can feel this energy that no one else can because you've been on this earth for so long and you're wise and wonderful and you can share that with other women.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. That's what I want women to feel.
I
And
love that. I love
yeah,
that. And thank you for sharing that you became a yoga instructor at 55, because I'm always saying to everybody, it doesn't matter your age. And I also think that now we are in a moment in time where finally we have a lot of information, for better or worse, but I think it's for better, because if you think about our parents and the generations before us, they didn't know anything. So they were doing what they saw other people doing. And so all of them have this limiting beliefs and they don't think they can, and as a woman you cannot be this and you cannot be that, once this happens, once you get to the certain age, and by the certain age you need to do and be this, otherwise you're a failure.
right.
And I think now finally there's so many examples out there where you're like, no, 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 I can be who I want when I want at the time that it comes easy for me, because experience and life has taken me here, right now.
Right.
And maybe I am 20, and maybe I'm 30, maybe I'm 55, and maybe I'm even 70, and it doesn't really matter, because if my body allows, and if I am in good spirit and all of that, then I can be.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I love this message because it's also a message that I share a lot, and sometimes I purposely want to have women of a certain age starting over, starting back, or not even, but just doing what they want to do, without the limitation of what you're meant to be doing because.
Of the
And
conditioning, right?
exactly.
Yeah, well, a lot of it is conditioning. So a lot of women my age or young, even younger, and I'm 61, so I'll just say that. But conditioning is hard to it's hard to uncondition yourself or decondition, whatever the word is, because it's been ingrained in you so long. So trying to change and pull away from that, women are struggling. So, that's why people like myself or you, we try to help people move through that. But it's not hard. You don't have to be stuck in the past or stuck in the old ways. You can have a different life and can do what you want, can move through towards your most authentic self. It's just finding what that is sometimes and like peeling back all the layers or uncovering who you are. But it can be done, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh my God. Yeah. Sometimes I have clients that tell me, oh, I didn't know I could do this. And I'm like, what do you mean? And like, because you get so stuck into fear and your current situation and what my parents would think, his parents would think, that person would think, what I
Right.
should, or maybe I'll hurt that person. And the moment we release all of those
Yeah.
limitations and we start to trust our intuition and ourselves, and we start to empower ourselves, and we start to really listen to our desires, oh my God, what you can do and what you can be. And sometimes it doesn't have to be anything big. Could be something really small that you didn't think you could. And then you do it, you're like, oh my God, can I? And I'm like, yeah, of
I
course you
know.
can. Please go ahead. Please do it. Please start over. Please start a new business. Please, whatever that is.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so freeing and it's hard. And like you said, it's fear. It's, there's fear, there's lack of self-worth, all these things, there's risks involved. Yeah. But you won't know till you try. And some things that you can try don't cost anything. I
Yeah.
tell people like, doesn't cost you anything to try something maybe. But I want to share with you something that really was very significant as far for me. I do owe a lot of it to Reiki once again, but by the time this airs, it'll be right now, it's about a year this month that I stopped drinking alcohol. Now I was drinking alcohol and I just wrote an article about it. It's in the Reiki news magazine about how Reiki helped me and it led me towards a path of stopping to drink alcohol, which I've wanted to for a long time because I knew it wasn't good. I've had this long relationship with alcohol, and I stopped a year ago, and I've never felt better because I knew that like it's not a part of who I want to be, but I was so
Mm.
conditioned that it was part of my life. But one of the things that stopped me from drinking, besides that it was so habit forming, and it's very highly addicting, and maybe not for everyone, but for me it was. I was worried about what everyone else would think. Like, like, can I tell people I'm not drinking? What would they think? Are they going to want to hang out with me? They want to, still have dinner with me and invite me over. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to tell people I'm not drinking. And they were like, you're not drinking anymore? I'm like, no, forever. I'm like, that's the plan. They're like, good for you. So was, it was like, oh, good. Thank God. No, but after a while, I was like, who cares? That's my journey. If,
Yeah.
and people will start like, oh, I really don't drink on the weekends or I don't during the week. Or I'm like, I don't care. You can do whatever you want. I'm on my journey and I feel good about it. So don't let anybody else or the thought of what somebody else is thinking stop you from living the life that you want,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
don't wait 60 years or 61 years or 50 years or whatever, and it's not too late to change. That's the
Oh my
beauty
God.
of owning your own life.
Exactly. And I so resonate with the thing of the alcohol because when I moved here, there is this big culture of drinking
In London, yeah.
in London. And I obviously was coming from it. I mean, Italy has
Italian,
changed so much now, but
yeah.
like if you go out, you see a lot of drunk 20 years old, which wasn't happening before. But when I moved here, I was used to maybe drink, maybe even, a Negroni, that kind of things, but always with food. And so getting drunk wasn't a thing for me.
Right.
Um, it never happened because there is this culture, you drink and you eat. And so, there was this also attention to it because we drink a lot of wine, especially. But wine for me was a bottle on the table at dinner at lunch because my dad will make wine with his cousins. So it wasn't that thing that it was normal. Like you have a glass of wine
Yeah,
when you're
it's like
having
the
lunch or
salt on the
dinner,
table. Yeah, it was like
right?
salt on the table. Yeah,
Exactly.
because my dad made wine too. I'm Italian, so you know
Right.
that. But yeah, yeah, I was like, they asked me
So
when I was 10 years old, "Do you want a sip?" I'm like, "No." Like, okay.
I would have
Like,
water with a couple
yes, a little
so
splash.
a little bit, so it turned purple, and that was my wine. Because I had a thing for purple. But when I moved here, all of a sudden there was this thing where you had to drink, and I started getting drunk, and I was like, I don't like this. I don't like this because I don't like being out of control. But I'm by myself. Yeah, I might be with friends, but then I need to come home alone. I just was very aware of
Yeah.
this, and I did get drunk a few times. And then what would happen was that the day after, I would just spend the day in bed. And so I was like, okay, this doesn't work for me because I don't become fun. I don't forget stuff. I do stupid things, and the day after is ruined. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna say, like, I was going out with my colleagues on a Friday afternoon, and there would be like pints over pints, and I was like, okay, I'm out, I'm going for dinner. What do you mean? Like, no, but Mark, I was like, no, no, I'm Italian. So I started to use the Italian excuse just to shut up people, and then I was like, I just don't drink as much as you. Then I started to be like, very much like, nope, are you serious? Yeah, I am. Seriously? Yes. And eventually then shifted the people around me. But when there are colleagues and stuff, you can't really shift them that much.
Yeah, no.
But it's that conditioning of having people. Sometimes I will drink because people were so insistent.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, another drink. Oh, come on, it's my birthday. Okay,
The
okay.
peer pressure.
And then I realized it wasn't good for me because I love drink. Like I love having a glass of wine too, or having a cocktail, whatever that is, when it's my decision, but not when it's your decision and you're forcing me and I am allowing you to force me because I don't want to disappoint, to look weird or whatever. And so I did that for a while, and I'm like, no, this needs to stop. I don't get anything from getting drunk or for drinking too much. What I get is a headache in the morning when maybe I need to go to work, or I spend the day in bed, and it's a sunny day and we never have sunny days, and I just lost the sunny day because but I was like, I don't like that. And so I started shifting, and I started being
Yeah.
very, very strong on my no. I was like, no, I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not
you're more
drinking.
self-aware. You're definitely more self-aware of how you felt. Where a lot of people, and sometimes drinking serves a different purpose for a lot of
Yeah.
people, and that's to mask a lot of things that they're going through. But as a healer, you're more aware and you know how to do the work. And so drinking wasn't necessarily that for you, it was something different.
Yeah,
Whereas,
exactly.
I had a different relationship for a long time, and but now I'm like, I don't need it. I never needed it, but now I'm like, I really don't need it. I want to be a clearer channel for myself and for the people that
Right.
I heal, and I want to live the rest of my life healthy. My dad had cancer, my mom had cancer, I had cancer. So, let's stop the cancer train and, you know, be
Yeah.
healthy and
Yeah.
live that long life because I'd like to be here for a long time, a
Yeah.
longer
Sounds like a
longer
good
time.
plan.
Yeah, it's a good plan. So yeah, so that was my purpose for that, and I feel great, and I sleep better. I haven't lost a pound, I haven't lost a gram, but I feel great, so that's all that matters. But I'm working on it though. Yeah.
Yeah, well, but everything comes with time, and then if
Yes.
you just finish that, then the next thing will come.
Oh
So,
yeah, no,
you know,
I'm not concerned. I take care of myself, and that's another thing. I've always been very aware of taking care of my body, working out or doing yoga or doing the proper workout for myself. Like I'm not a real high intensity workout runner or anything like that, but I know yoga and qigong and those things are good for me. And so I just pursue what I know is best. So
Good.
yeah,
Tell us about qigong, because I don't think it's like, well, yoga and Reiki are more
yeah, they're more known,
in the
right?
spotlight.
Yeah,
Exactly.
spotlight. I love that.
Tell us about qigong. How did you get into that?
Yeah,
What it is? How does it help?
sure. Oh, it's a great question. So qigong, I discovered while I was teaching yoga within the past, I guess, 6, 7 years, and it's been around longer than probably any other form of practice, or even as long as yoga. But it really forms the umbrella. It's the umbrella of which all the other martial arts falls under, like Tai Chi and judo and all those martial arts. But qigong, qi is energy and gong means work. So qigong means that we work with our energy. And the movements, there's various movements, thousands of different styles, but the goal or the intention is to work with our energy, to move energy that is blocked in our bodies. And a lot of times it gets blocked in the joints. And so when we work with the energy and when we work with the movements, we move the energy around, we allow for a better flow of energy, and then we heal or help our organs perform better too. So it all leads to the organs, the muscles, the connective tissue, the nerves in the body, everything. It affects everything. And so I started integrating qigong into my yoga classes, and people loved it because yoga can be very, like, it's different. So you've got your movements and you're pausing and you're holding, but then qigong is more fluid and more like dance like. And so that's what I
Mm,
loved about it. Right. But it's very powerful because it does create strength. It creates flexibility and mobility in the body. It's accessible to a lot of people. It's not that it's like Tai Chi, but it's different because it depends on who you learn from. But it's just movement. You're moving the energy in the body. You're working to create better and healthier flow of energy. And I
right.
find that that helps me become a better Reiki practitioner, that I feel better. It's, I don't know, it's just part of the tools in my toolbox, but it's such a great practice. And it's not really well known in the States. However, it is in China and Japan. In England, it's more so. There's more people there practicing it and other parts. So I'm trying to introduce more of that to people so that they can also feel the benefits of it. And like I said, it's nice. It's a nice movement. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Would you say, because you said you do yoga and qigong at the
Yes.
same time, would you say that feels like, at least for the people that are actually taking the class, would you say that feels more intentional?
That the practice is more intentional. Well,
The qigong part feels
uh,
more intentional.
yes, actually, I that's a really good observation. I never thought of it that way, but
I
yes,
thought of it from
from
the
an intuitive
perspective of
perspective.
doing yogas as well. Like, I try to do as much as I can to help my body, to move my energies. But from the way you were describing it, because I never done qigong myself, so I don't know how that work. How would that work with me moving what? And from the way you were talking about it, it feels more like, if I was thinking about me having a
Hmm.
session with you, a class with you, and thinking, okay, so I've done my yoga class, and the way I do my yoga class sometimes is like, okay, so it's 45 minutes. Okay, yeah, I'm doing this. And okay, yeah, only 15. Okay, I can do it,
Yeah.
But then you talk about moving energy, and I'm like, oh, maybe that takes you more into the more intentional part. You're moving energy with yoga
Yeah.
anyway, but
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
different.
that
It's
people get more into the exercise part rather than the intention of moving energy to help
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying that. So yeah, yoga. So, people are doing the poses because I don't know, for the strength and the shape of the pose, and they're trying to get into these different things, and that's the intention sometimes. Uh it depends how you teach it, but I think qigong helps you become more aware of your body. Not that yoga doesn't. Yoga does it a different level, in a different way. Yoga shows you your limitations, shows you where you can do things. It does help you become aware of your body, but Qigong is more like your energy, like you're moving. The more you practice Qigong, you can actually feel the energy move in the body,
Right.
like move out of the arms, move in the body, move up towards, I mean, it just flows. It just happens. So you learn how, and you can expand your energy around you, and you could see how it affects even just like how you walk in a room. So it's just it's different, but I think that the practices can complement each other. So
Oh, yeah.
I do a lot of yin yoga and qigong, where yin, it's more receptive, more quiet, where you work on the connective tissue and the joints by stretching, right? So you're opening up those areas. Then we stand and we work with that energy that's flowing. So it's better able to flow. So those are the two practices that I really love to integrate, whereas the yin yoga and the qigong, that yin yang complement, and people love it.
I
So
like that. Yeah.
yeah, people are really loving that combination. And I actually don't teach online. I do teach locally, but I would like to introduce more yoga teachers to incorporating qigong into their practices, because I think it's a nice change too,
It feels to me that it's natural flow of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you move your body first, and so you're still in your mind at the beginning. And as you're at the end of the yoga practice, you're more into your body. And so at that point, you can move into your energy. So it feels
Yes.
like a very natural
Oh, yeah.
addiction to the yoga practice.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, and that's a nice way of saying it. Yes, you're more in tune and aware of the intention. And even in Qigong, we use intention to move the energy as well. I mean, we can be still in a standing Qigong posture and move the intention with our minds and awareness. And it's pretty powerful. It's nice. So I encourage everyone to try Qigong. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, start doing classes
They're doing
online, and I'll
classes
do that too.
online. Yeah. You're right.
But I'm curious what brought you to also add that, because like you've been doing yoga for a long time and you've been a Reiki master. So at some point you're like, okay, I'll become a yoga instructor. So
Okay.
what led you to get to that? Because thinking about it, like energy is Reiki and movement and energy is yoga. So you kind of already had some sort of complementary disciplines
Yes.
that you could use and you could work with. So what made you want to go into that?
I find that I get guided to go a certain way. So I've always said that, Reiki has guided me to do this and to go here and to do that and to study yoga. And I really strongly I felt this strong pull to learn Qigong. I started introducing it in my classes when nobody was doing that. And then I found my teacher, John Monroe of Long White Cloud Qigong. I just was Googling and came across him, and I'm like, oh, he really resonates with me. And he was doing a course, and it was during COVID or right after COVID, 200 hours. And he's in New Zealand. And I just was like, wow, this is for me. And I've since gone on to take, I'm 600 hours of Qigong
Oh,
studies.
wow.
Yeah. And it incorporates not only the movements, but you're learning also the elements, the five elements, a lot of traditional Chinese medicine and how it relates to Qigong. So it's not just the movements, but there's a lot of other components to learn in Qigong. And yeah, so it's a lot of studies, but I just feel like I feel like I have the Trinity. I have Reiki, yoga, and Qigong, and that's my Trinity. And that's why I call myself like an energy alchemist, because I work with people to help identify blocks in their energy and how they can move their energy through any of these components. And I also have a very strong intuitive guidance. So when I'm working with people in my Reiki practice, I also am very highly intuitive, and I share with them a lot of impressions that I get, I don't tell them what to do. I just share with them, and I'm like, okay, you know, be aware of these things, and it's like a coaching session. So I treat my
Mm.
Reiki sessions a lot differently than maybe other people may. So it's more like a coaching healing session, which I love. I love that.
Yeah, I love that, and I understand what you mean, because when you do the Reiki course, then they tell you, you can't say anything. I'm like, but I'm a coach.
Yeah.
I'm an emotional healer. I do color therapy, so my sessions are gonna be different, because I feel like if I had to do just the Reiki part, okay, but because I have so much else that I can help someone with, I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing a disservice if I am not telling you this is
Yeah.
what I felt and this is what I've seen.
I
So
agree.
normally I kind of go, okay, so what did you feel? All right. And then I go, okay, this is why.
It's so healing.
This is where.
Yeah.
This is the topic. And so we move that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think
I mean,
the reason why we get into all of those practices is to help other people better understand what's blocking them, as you said. And
yeah.
so
Oh yeah. I have, I'll do sessions on people, and I have, you know, people who have crossed over in their lives, their ancestors come in and help me, and I'll share that with them, and
mm,
that's very healing for a lot of people,
oh my
whether
God,
or not
yeah.
they had a good relationship with them or not. Just to know that they're there or they're healing, and it's very comforting. So, oh yeah, I mean, I tell my students that are learning Reiki from me, use your intuitive guidance because you have it. And a lot of people think they don't have it. And I know you call
Oh
yourself the
my God.
intuition queen, right?
Yes.
I mean, we all have that. We just don't realize it, or we don't know how to use it. But wow, I mean, especially when you work with energy and you're unblocking a lot of energy and you become a clearer channel, there's so much that you can hear and
Mm-mm.
feel, right? And know. And
Yeah.
it's let that guide you. And I think for a long time, I went against that. There's so many, I think about like so many things in my life that I won't share because I don't want to, but I'm like, oh, I knew at the time I shouldn't do that, but I did it anyway. And it
Yeah.
really wasn't good. So, but
Yeah.
then
Oh my
like,
God. Yeah.
yeah, but I'd have no regrets because I'm here where I am today and I'm very happy and I have my boys and my family. So it's all good,
Maybe you
part of
just
my
have to do
journey.
that. I just think, um, I think I did a podcast episode in September, in July, where I was talking about intuition, because I realized that, um, I've been talking about intuition for so long, and then I deviated the topics, but I haven't talked that much about intuition. But I'm all about intuition, so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go back to it. Also, because after the podcast started again, a lot of listener are new. So, and the thing that I say all the time, because one of the things that people tell me, it's either like I'm not intuitive, I don't, and but normally that's fear that gets in the way. But then it's like, what if my intuition got me to do something wrong and I get into a wrong situation? I'm like, if you acted by intuition, you didn't go into the wrong situation. If you acted
Mm.
by fear, which sometimes can feel like intuition, then you probably went into the wrong situation. But even there is a lesson for you to learn. First of all, not all the times not always when you follow your intuition, you're going to find yourself in the most beautiful situation.
Right.
Sometimes you need to go through a lesson because you haven't learned that lesson. Maybe you haven't listened to that intuition 5 times before, and you only listened 5 times out of 10, and the other five you listen to your fear. And so your intuition is just telling you, okay, now I'm just going to throw you right here, right there. You're going to have to face
Yep.
it,
Yep.
and then you can move on. So to me, it's always like, okay, maybe you weren't ready to listen to your intuition. You acted out of fear. Somehow something happened that brought you where you were supposed to be. And yes, maybe if you listen to your intuition 10 times out of 10, you would have got to that point quicker, but maybe that wasn't the journey
Yeah.
that you needed to be on. And so to me, it's always like, okay, so what, because the things we struggle the most with are the things we are here to learn, because there is a lesson that we also need to share.
Yeah. Yes.
And so, it is what it is, as long as you don't constantly go back and be like, oh, but accept where you are and move on, and
Yeah.
be more intentional in move in how you decide to move on, and trust yourself more when you decide to move on.
Yeah. Trusting those words and that guidance. That's the big one. The fear and then just trusting that that's what you need to do. But yeah, I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's great.
Okay, Rose, I'll speak to you for like another
I know,
hour.
right? We can keep going. We
I'm
probably
sure
should
there
wrap
is
up,
so
right?
much more. Yeah, I'm sure there is so much more we can talk about. But I love episodes like this where everything is so flowy and it just so
Organic.
powerful and so
Yeah.
meaningful. So thank you so much for everything that you shared.
Oh, thank you.
At this point, share with us where we can find you, how we can work with you, anything.
Sure. Well, you can always find me at my podcast, Chat Off the Bat, which I just love sharing because it's a platform that I love, and I invite guests who I love to support, like Mara, yourself, who's been on, and I'm all about supporting the people that are on and sharing their stories and what they do to heal people, because I just want to inspire anybody to just, get on the path to loving themselves and living their best life. I have a website, and I know you put everything in the show notes, and I won't,
Yep.
you know, mention every single bit, but I do have a course. It's a mini course online, which is called New Energy, New You. It's a nice ebook or guidebook that I put together. There's also some qigong exercise videos that I put together, simple ones, some meditations. So that's on my website, and I'd like to offer your listeners a discount with using the code energy. You get 20% off. So I think it brings it to like $44 or something like that, which is and it's yours to keep forever. So check it out. I think just even introducing yourself to the movements of Qigong will be nice. But the course is about setting intentions around what you want to manifest. But it also helps you to tune into your inner guidance, your intuition, all the things that we were talking about, and unblocking energies that are blocking you from moving forward. So it's just a nice, like a lot of little pieces put together for with that. Um, yeah. So, and also I offer distance healing Reiki sessions or coaching sessions. You can find that on my website. And there's also a chance to just set up a discovery call with me. If you're like, well, I don't know what I want, you can just chat. I have a little quick chat link under scheduler or calls. You can find that on my website if you want to just chat for 15 minutes. And yeah, so I offer that as well. But yeah, I love talking to you and sharing my story. And I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do so today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. I love
Thank you.
this kind of conversation. Before we actually go, there's always one question that I ask my guests, which is, what advice you would give to the people listening and watching this episode that you think would be important for them to hear?
I want to tell everyone that your life is short. We have a certain amount of time on this earth, and we really don't know how long that time is. And I've learned from losing very important people in my life early, and for struggling with so many things that I have through my life, that life is short. Live the best life you can. Do what you can to invite the right people in your life, to let go of the people that no longer are the right people for you, if you can, or just actually just let go of their energy, even if you can't let go of them. But try new things, try things that make you happy, try new things, just try to live your best life. And that's the advice I have. So, yeah,
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you
thank you.
so much for being on the podcast today.
You.
And for everybody, check the show notes, check Chat Off the Mat. It's an amazing podcast. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Wasn't this episode and my guest amazing today? Well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a review on iTunes. It will help me so much to grow this podcast, to share more amazing guests, and to actually share this message all over for as many people as possible. Feel free to leave comments if you're watching this on YouTube, and share it to anyone that you feel might resonate with this episode or any other episode that you might be interested in. I know there are always so many things we are talking about. So if you feel this can help someone to get out of their way to create their own life, or just they need a little bit of a boost and inspiration, I will be so happy. If you want to get in touch with my guests, all of the links are in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, they are in the description box. The same goes for my links. If you want to get in touch with me, just go to theintuitionqueen.com. You can see all of my offers. You can see all of the freebies and everything that I do. And if you can book a session or book a chat with me, I love to have a chat with you, and I love to help you. You can sign up to my newsletter. The link is below. Thank you so much for watching and for listening, and I'll see you next week.